Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome in to Six Screen Sunday. Well, my name is Rick Farron. I'm up here at the control panel of the Six Screens up in Boston, and we really do appreciate the amount of people we see coming into the program today. That's very, very enjoyable to see that. Now, what we do here is on this particular show that Anne-Marie has, we talk about your trek in the Watchtower. We talk about what did you experience, whether it's good or bad. Anne-Marie will hear it. She'd love to have you call into a program today. So you will see a number. I have the number up. So you see that number on YouTube and Facebook. By all means, call that number in and you'll be able to share your story. So Anne-Marie, you there with us?
Yes, my brother Rick.
Well, good to have you on again with us, Anne-Marie. Thank you very much for wanting to do the program here on Sundays. We're back in action. We got some things behind us now, the moving and all that confusion. So we're back on our regular Sunday programming. So it's nice to have you on here with us all the time, Anne-Marie. I want to tell you, we really appreciate your effort that you put forward. So we're trying to get somebody in. Again, we did have some people, but it's very difficult. I don't know if people lose contact with the time zones. It makes it really difficult when you're doing an international program. People can get the hours mixed up a lot. But I'm just going to put a call out if there's anybody listening to this program right now, whether it's on YouTube or Facebook or on our radio network, and you like to tell your story or at least share it. We'll give you 20 minutes, a half hour, 10 minutes, whatever you like. We'll give you that time. And wouldn't it be nice to hear from someone new today, Anne-Marie? Well, I don't know. Anne-Marie, there with us? Well, she has been.
I'm sorry, my mute button didn't work.
Okay.
A lot of things don't work on this phone. We had a gentleman from New Zealand who said he was going to come on, but then I didn't hear back from him. So, we always have a good show no matter what. Anybody who wants to share is welcome to share because you have set time for that.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to call that man right now. I'm going to call him on Facebook and remind him he was going to come on. Now, this man, his name is Stephen, and he does have a form of autism. And Stephen calls me. I call him the biggest apostate in New Zealand. He does have a form of autism, but he really has a dislike for the Jehovah's Witness religion. So if you hear him come on, that's his issue. We'll see if we can't get him on here right now. Let me just go to Facebook here. I can call him here, and I'll be able to put the telephone close to us. So let me see if I can't get him on here right now. Let's see.
Okay.
Let's see if we can't do that. Home. I'm going to put, it's Stephen. In the meantime, why don't you talk to the audience a little bit, Anne-Marie, and I'll try to get him on here with us.
Well, okay, my brother.
Grace from
Hi, Grace. Hi, Grace. How are you?
I don't know. Well, I was to the meeting today on Zoom. It was 3 hours, and it was for Scandinavia. And we had the Gage Fliego from the governing body. He had a speech. I don't know if you listened to me, but it was pretty upsetting because he said that the caution is wash a donkey's tail is a waste of soap and time. So don't waste time on apostates, not give holy to dogs and herd before swine. And they also quoted Isaiah 51:8 about, where did I put it now? I had it right here. It said, for the moth will eat them up just as garment, and the clothes moth will eat them up just as if. It was pretty horrible what he said about the apostates.
Right. Yeah, they love to quote the Hebrew scriptures, which have really nothing much to do with Christianity, when Christ, died to forgive all of our sins, but yet they use the Hebrew scriptures, the Old Testament, to condemn anybody who dared to leave Watchtower and speak out about the evils that they do.
It's pretty insulting speech, and he also.
Oh, shoot. Hello?
We get Steve coming on here for us. Hear him.
Okay.
Hello, Steve. Hello, Steve. Can you hear me, Steve? How you doing, Steve? All right. All right. All right. Well, hold on one second. Anne Marie, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't understand Steve. Bless his heart.
Yeah, I got the best I can get for sound off of Facebook. Steve, slow down a little bit when you
No
talk.
worries.
Slow down a little bit when you talk, Steve. And Anne Marie's on with us now. You're on the air live. You're on the Six Screen Sunday program. The name of the program, of course, is Jehovah's Witnesses share their story of being in the Watchtower. So you want to share your story, Steve, right? All right. So go ahead, Steve, and go slow, like I say, so we can really connect with you. You got that New England, that New Zealand accent, so to speak. But go nice and slow. We'll connect with you. Go ahead. All right. Well, hold on one second now. Let me just kind of reiterate what you're saying so the audience can understand it because of your thick accent. So, anyways, we had a woman named Irene, and she brought you into the Watchtower, and and oh, okay, hold on now. Let me just kind of come in here and make sure the audience can hear you, and I'll kind of reiterate what you're saying. So, the married couple knocked on your door, and you were very how old were you? 17? You were 17, and so you had this feeling. I mean, like all of us do, we all want to live forever. So that got your attention when she knocked on your door, right? Well, Anne Marie is not, she doesn't do videos, so she won't be able to see your face. She won't be able to see your, I mean, well, maybe she can. Anne Marie, you on YouTube or I don't know if you can see him on YouTube or not.
No,
Uh,
no, I'm only on this terrible phone. Hi,
okay.
Steve. I'm here for you. Yeah, I heard that. Your mom must have sensed that they were a cult and that they were trying to snag you into their cult, and she tried to reach you. I'm sure that was very hard for you, Stephen. So what happened after you started going to the meetings to find your mother? Wow. So how long did you stay going to the meetings and studying with the young couple before you got baptized? Did you get baptized, Steve? Okay. I'm not really clear what you said. Something about when you were almost 20. I thought I heard you say gardening. Did you say gardening? Steve, did I hear you correctly that when you seem to have enjoyed gardening, which is very therapeutic, very calming, and did somebody say to you because you enjoyed gardening that somehow you were participating in Babylon the Great or there was something wrong with you gardening? Is that correct? Okay. And then what happened? Oh no. Did you talk to anybody about your suicidal thoughts? No, they didn't. What? Oh no. Steve, please forgive me. To be clear, what exactly was it that the governing the Watchtower said that you were doing something that was supporting Babylon the Great? It wasn't gardening specifically. Was it somebody you were working with or working with you? Oh, okay. Oh no. I am so sorry, Steve. And the Watchtower claims to be a charity organization, but they said you were working with Babylon the Great because you were doing gardening with a charity organization. Oh my God. These Gestapo enforcers know no bound. They're like the Watchtower police. I'm so sorry, Steve. That must have been so discouraging. So what happened? Did you accidentally get on a wrong channel or something? What was it exactly that you did that was a mistake that you're referring to? No, I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, so did you accidentally go on a channel that showed pornography? Is that what you're saying? Oh, what items were that? Can you share? Oh, that is terrible.
Hey, Steve, we're having some technical difficulty here. We're probably going to have to let this go for now. We'll have to bring you on another time. We got some issues here going on the internet, but we really appreciate you coming on and giving us your stories. So I mean, what I gather from the conversation here, you've been dealt unfairly with the Watchtower, but Steve, was so glad that you're out of it. Thank you. Thank you for coming on at least and trying to give your story. We'll get you back on someday. We'll get a nice clear signal, okay? Well, maybe not next week, but I'll give you time. I'll be in touch with you and let you know, okay, Steve? Thank, thank you, Steve. Thank you though for coming on Anne Marie's program. So I'll be in touch with you in the next.
Oh, Steve, I'm so sorry you had such a sad time in the Watchtower. I'm so sorry you got tricked into thinking that they were really God's people when they were so mean and unkind to you. I'm so sorry. Yes, yes, it's so true. We all do make mistakes when we're under terrible pressure. And I'm so sorry you were treated so badly. I know you felt so bad about that and you didn't mean to. Oh no. How did that make you feel when you saw this elder shunning his own son? How did you feel about that? Good for you.
Hey, Steve, I'm going to be in contact with you. I'm going to be in contact with you this week, and we'll make some more arrangements for you. But thank you for coming on today. Thank you, Steve. Oh, thank you very much. I'll be in contact with you. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you so much, Steve.
All right, Anne Marie, we're back. Yeah,
Hello,
well,
this is Grace. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
So anyway, there was this guy in the beginning, and he claimed that the congregations in Scandinavia is growing. And I don't believe that for a second, because just in the neck of my woods, we had 3 congregations that shut down.
Oh, wow.
And Gage Flegel actually said that there were 9 million Jehovah's Witnesses. And I don't believe that for a second either. So they are just lying and cooking the books, so to speak. And there was another thing that made me irritated. Gage Flegel brought up that children die from not getting blood transfusion. But they just believe in Jesus and eternal life, so it's like it wasn't a problem that the Jehovah's Witnesses don't accept the blood transfusion. So, like I said before, they are sticking to this, and the reason, like I told before, is that they will be sued. There will be so many lawsuits from all the children who died from not getting blood transfusion if they would go back on this. So
that is
it's
so
really
true.
upsetting, but maybe we shouldn't get into it too much. And there was another thing also that he said, we do not vote. And I have heard this before from platforms also, even though, as I recall now, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was some around 1995 in the question from readers section, and they said that now voting is up to your own conscience as Jehovah's Witness. Even so, they still say, oh, we do not vote. So they don't even know their own religion. Even not Gage Flegel doesn't know the rules. So it's just annoying, and he actually said, it's just so ridiculous, but he actually said that Jehovah's Witness is wiser than an astronaut because they have connection with God. And also, he said that since the Pope doesn't go from house to house, then you are stronger than the Pope.
Oh my God.
So it's just this Gage Flegel, I'm telling you, he is completely insane. And that's not an exaggeration. That's just,
Yeah.
and, well, there were so many things. I have so much notes here, and he started out with trying to get to your emotions by talking about his father that died of cancer, and he took his father to see the beautiful sunset and everything, just to lure people in, like it was a how you say, how hypnotic, how you say, no, hypnotic.
Yeah.
And then he say that his father, Kenneth Flegel, he didn't go to college. He was just working in construction. And he started to talk about the apostles, that they were carpenters, they were fishermen, they were just ordinary people without any higher education. So what is this to say, more or less, to the younger people? Don't go to school so much. Don't pursue higher education. That's what he is saying, essentially. But he forgot to mention that, what's his name now, the governing body, Joe Jodell, that he has a high education in how to sell real estate, and he got a lot of money from this. And he forgot to mention this. And most witnesses, they seem to not know about this, what's his name now, Joe Jodell, or, oh my God. Oh, there was so much in this 3 hour, so it was just ridiculous. And they also brought up, don't say that you are too young to help out. So between 18 and 55 years old, you can do any chore for Jehovah's Witness. So they're just trying to wheel the young ones in and tell them to work for Jehovah's organization. Well, I guess that's a good summary of what I was going to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Grace. I mean, it's amazing how the governing body will use scriptures from the Old Testament to sort of back up whatever point they're trying to make, like saying that in Jesus' day, you know, the apostles were fishermen and carpenters, and they basically did menial labor. Well, guess what? They didn't have education. There weren't any colleges. They didn't have courses that you could take to be an electrician or a plumber and so on. Well, if they want to use that as an example of how Jehovah's Witnesses should be nowadays, why don't they say that brothers should wear long robes and have long beards and wear sandals on their feet instead of socks and shoes and a tie? They're so manipulative. I thank you for coming on, Grace. You give really great points, and I appreciate your share, especially that 3 congregations shut down. That's terrible. Congregations have been being shut down all over the place. And then, oh my God, so many thousands of Kingdom Halls.
Yes, and that's why I'm so annoyed that he say the congregations is growing in Scandinavia. They are flat out lying.
Yep.
Well, I shouldn't take up too much of your time. Thank you.
Well, that's what this show is for, dear. That's what this show is for. It's specifically set aside by Rick for those who have any experience or thoughts about being in the Watchtower. This is the time to share it. So you're not taking up my time. Oh, poor Steve. Steve just messaged me saying that, explaining that he had made a mistake by shoplifting an item when he was 19 in 1995, when he was mentally unwell. And the elders that he tried to talk to about his depression and suicidal thoughts, they were just blaming him, that it was all his fault. So he writes better than he talks. I understand everything he says when he messages. Anybody want to comment on what Grace was saying or what Steve was trying to share, or any thoughts about your trek in the Watchtower?
Well, Anne-Marie, I just wanted to bring up the fact that with Steve, as everyone knows, he does suffer from, I believe it's autism. So you did have, but the people did have a hard time understanding him, and rightfully so. But the poor man, he I'll tell you, in life is difficult, Anne-Marie, being healthy. But boy, when you have an ailment, it's 10 times worse. And you can just imagine the issues this man faces every day. And, he doesn't have any friends. He's my friend on Facebook, and I chat with him from time to time. And, he wants me to let the audience know that he's the biggest apostate in all of New Zealand. And he goes out and he actually protests. He actually goes out to Kingdom Halls. Yeah, and he protests and tries to let New Zealand know how bad the Jehovah's Witnesses are. So you even have a man that's, mentally challenged, you could say, because of the autistic problem he has, but yet he's doing everything he can. He's a good man, Anne-Marie. I love Steve.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart. He seems to be basically intelligent, but it's hard for him to articulate. That is a mental process. He seems to have no trouble at all communicating via text or messaging, through write. But he's been messaging me for a while, and he'll tell me about every incident that when he runs into witnesses at the cart or protesting or what. But in his state, he does what he can as often as he can, like you said, to really shine a light on what the organization is really like. And it's just so hard for him to, vocally articulate what he's trying to share. But in his brain, he knows what he's saying. It was just, I have a terrible time hearing because his phone is so bad. But I wanted him to know that I was trying, and I didn't want him to think that we didn't want to hear him. And I appreciate your handling the situation so well, Rick.
Yeah, what it is, he doesn't call on the telephone line. I talk to him on Facebook phone, which is pretty good. It's pretty good. It can be a little fuzzy at times. But, I did want to say that he is a great writer. I mean, when he writes, he texts me too and sends me messages. And you never know he has an issue in life. But, I got thinking, I really did. There's a lot of people listening to this program too that suffer. And even Dick and Constance last night, they talked about issues with people. And, I think, anyone that's really healthy on here, we have a lot to be very thankful for. Because I'll tell you what, I would rather be a healthy man and live in a cardboard box on the sidewalk of a street than be an unhealthy person living in a palatial mansion Health is everything, Anne Marie.
Oh, yes. And it's really sad, and he gave the example. It's sad how uncompassionate and unempathetic the elders who are supposed to be loving shepherds. I mean, is that an incongruous comparison? On one hand, they're supposed to be loving shepherds, having mercy and kindness and trying to help you. But on the other hand, they're the judicial committee. I mean, they talk about love, but how they behave is in a cold-hearted, dictatorial, tyrannical way. And it's like this poor man struggling. He probably doesn't have friends. And he goes to the elders and tries to tell them, I did this big mistake. When he talked about the remote control, I thought he had accidentally stumbled on a pornography channel. I had a terrible time understanding. But what he had done is accidentally just taken some food items, a bag of flour and something else, and walked out of the store. And I wasn't clear on that. But he said he had gone to the elders and said, when I was really struggling, I did this terrible thing, which was shoplifting. And I just can't believe how they were mean to him. They blamed him and jumping on him for working with a charity on a community garden, which, you know, I've seen community gardens, and they are all about helping the neighborhood. And they jumped on him and said he was dealing with Babylon the Great, that what he was doing was basically a sin against God. What the heck, Rick?
Well,
They seem to be so unkind.
well, they are. That's, really, if Anne Marie, you're a loving person, and I'm a loving guy. I mean, I'm not patting myself on the back, but I don't treat people mean. In the Watchtower, they would do that. Now, here you have a man, 19 years old, shoplifting. He didn't do it on purpose. For whatever reason, he was having some times mentally and what have you. So he actually took something. Geez, I'll tell you, they'll never let that one go. He'll be beat up the rest of his life. Even if he still was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, they would still hold that against him. That's a terrible thing. You think that a loving man could sit down with him and say, Steve, don't worry. That was a problem you had back then. And I know you did it under duress, but, God forgives you. And, you just let it go. They would never say something like that. They'll beat you up. And I've gave the story on here many times before, and I'll give it again today. My son, I believe today, is not one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
I was just thinking of him.
Yeah, my son is not one of Jehovah's Witnesses today because I believe I know he was mistreated at 17. In fact, I think he was only 15 to 16. No, he wasn't 17. He was probably 15.
16.
16 was he?
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere around there, but I know he wasn't.
You told me that.
Yeah. So anyways, he's walking down the street one day with his friend up here in Massachusetts. And then we go to the meeting that night. And so they want to speak with Jack, my son, that's his name, and me in the back room after the meeting. So, Jack's looking at me, Dad, did I do something wrong? I don't know what they want to talk about, Jack, but we'll go be with them. So, geez, we go back. So they make a big ordeal about it. Well, the elders wanted to meet. We wanted to talk to you and Jack about something we saw Jack do today. So I said, well, what did he do? And Jack is even saying, what did I do? Now, this is in a judicial setting, Anne Marie. So the brothers say, well, Jack, we saw you walking down the street with Jeffrey. That was his friend, a witness friend. And we saw that you were smoking. So the poor kid, he said, I wasn't smoking. And tears started coming from his eyes, Anne Marie. And, I felt bad for him. I said, Jack, were you smoking? No, Dad. No, I'm telling you the truth. I was not smoking. So they said, well, we saw a cigarette in your mouth. He said, you couldn't have. And no, you couldn't have saw a cigarette in my mouth. I wasn't smoking. And then they said, well, something white looked like a cigarette to us. And he still had the same pants on, of course. So he takes out the pen. It was a pen. It was a white ink pen that he had in his mouth. People do that. They put it in their mouth, haphazardly.
Yeah.
So they saw that, and they thought it was a cigarette. So they're making this big judicial committee meeting about it. And I don't even recall them saying, gee, Jack was sorry, but the poor kid was in tears. The kid was in tears. And he went out of there with his tail between his legs, really, if you want to use that expression. He was, the poor kid, yeah. So anyways, and then they picked on him for other picayune things. And he's not a witness today. And I'm kind of glad that he could see through these guys.
It's not a safe place.
It's not.
You've given a very good illustration of why it's not a safe place.
They will destroy you.
Yeah.
And also, they are medically ignorant. If a person has a neurological condition like a nervous tic or a suicide migraine, cluster headaches, which are extremely painful, or anything that they don't deem as being totally in control of yourself, body, mind, and soul, sitting in a hard chair with soldier-like posture, they have even said people were demon-possessed. Now, we live in the 21st century. Those elders have not been to college. They mostly didn't even take high school science, and they're a bunch of ignorant bullies. That's my 2 cents.
What's really sad to me is that they will jump on somebody for having a big pin in their mouth walking down the street. Obviously, no smoke. Hold on, there's a plane going over. Sorry, people. But yet when somebody goes to them crying, saying that somebody in the congregation molested them or raped them, oh, well, you don't have to witness next. Like it's nothing. Or if a woman, a lady is beaten by her husband in the organization, oh, go be a better wife. But God forbid if somebody says they thought they saw you with a cigarette in your mouth. Well, obviously there was no smoke coming out of his mouth.
Well,
it's not a healthy habit, but let's keep in mind that smoking cigarettes is not illegal under any country's law.
Well, in fact, I'll bring up another quick story with Jack. So then that my son, we moved to Florida, and that was back in 1985, and he was 17 then. And when he was 18 years old, there was a young girl in the hall, a sister, a cute little Irish girl, and she was about the same. Well, she was probably a year younger than him, and she was still in school. So my son kind of took a fancy to her. He really thought she was a cute girl. He liked her. So what he did, I didn't really like the idea that, he would go meet her at school, and she had a car, and she'd skip school and they would go off driving. I didn't like that. Of course, no parent would, but so be it. So what happened? The father of the girl got wind that his daughter was skipping school and going out with my son on a date, so to speak. So the girl's father came to me, Rick, we have got to talk to the elders about this. I says, about what? She says, well, your son is dating my daughter, and you're not supposed to be dating. I says, well, let it be so. I said, let's you and I solve this. Let's talk to Cheryl. Let's talk to Jack. Let's get this resolved. Let's not make it an elder issue. Oh, no, they wanted to make a mountain out of a molehill. So the girl's father, oh, no, Rick, I've gone. We're going to be meeting in the meeting tonight. After the meeting, we're going in. The elders want to talk to you, me, Jack, and Cheryl. So we all go in the back room. So, of course, they bring up that, Jack is meeting or dating this girl in the hall. And so I said, look, I don't agree that she skipped school and they drove around. I don't agree to that at all. But I said, look, we were all young at one time. And, it's very much the way it is in the world that a young man will kind of look at a young girl. That's how things go in the world. That's how we were made. And they didn't like that comment. So I said, well, what is Jack doing that's really upsetting you? And so the father said, well, they're on the phone every night. Jack calls her every night. So he said, well, what do you call that? Phonication? Little pun there. So anyways, so, so, so anyways, they didn't care for that comment. So I said, look, okay, let's stop this. I don't want them alone together. I will agree with that. I will agree. Let's make sure that we have a controlled arrangement. Why doesn't Cheryl and you, the father and mother of Cheryl, why don't you come over to my house? Say like on a Sunday night or a Saturday, and we can have Jack and Cheryl together. They can be with us in the room. We can watch TV, make some popcorn, have some soda, and have a good old time. Oh no, Brother Farron, that's a date. I says, you can call it a date, but I mean, the sneaking around, wouldn't it be better to be in my living room where we can keep an eye on them? Well, in the Watchtower, if you date someone, you have to have marriage in mind. I always thought that was a stupid rule. Because how could you have marriage in mind? You don't even really know the person, but that's what they would want you to do. But anyways, it concluded that, Jack had to break up with Cheryl and they couldn't see each other. And the Watchtower ruined that relationship. And then Jack kind of really caught on to the Watchtower's tactics. And I'm kind of glad that happened because he's not a witness today. But they will pick on you from the cradle to the grave. Yeah.
What happened to Cheryl? Did she find a brother equal to your son Jack? I doubt it.
Well,
she could have. The parents weren't very smart there because you're supposed to marry only in the Lord and only a witness. They were missing the boat on that.
Well, Pixie, I'll even give the rest of the story if people want to hear it. I think they might, but I'll tell you what happened. This father, he was the stepfather, and now I'm just conjecturing. Don't take it to the bank and cash it, anyone, because I don't know for sure. But this man was an odd duck. Let's go with that. He was younger than the wife, the mother, and he was a stepfather. And I think he was jealous. I think he was jealous of Jack. Now that I've gone through all of these stories that people come on and tell me about child molesters and stepfathers, and not all. I'm not saying all stepfathers are bad. I wouldn't say that at all. But I'm saying there was something odd about this whole thing. And he was so adamant. He was so pushy to get us into that meeting so fast. I think he was actually jealous. I'm just thinking out loud. Don't anyone say I'm accusing anybody. But I think there was some hanky-panky going on there between the dad and the young girl. I really do. Yeah.
Rick, that makes sense. That totally makes sense because there is no logical reason, no matter how crazy you are, to say that coming to your home with the parents and you guys sitting all together, that he could be against that. Oh my God, I think you're right. Sounds like the Mormon men. They don't want anybody messing with the young girls. Go ahead.
Did you hear the program last night with the woman that was trafficked?
No, I couldn't listen to it because it reminded me of when way back in 2014, January 19, 2019, I think it was, when we last heard Johnny on the 6 Screens. He said that they had discovered, he and his fellow Bethelites who were trying to expose the Watchtower, that they had found on the deep dark web that the governing body and others higher up were involved in not only pornography and child molestation, but involved with sex trafficking of children. And now we've been hearing over the years more and more stories. In fact, we heard stories before that, but nobody really believed it. And so I couldn't listen to it. I'm so sorry.
Emery, there's a lot of people that couldn't. You're not the first one. Some people just couldn't do it. But, we give everyone a voice here at the 6 Screens. And this woman, she was so brave. The people crying last night, there were so many people crying on YouTube. They were saying there's tears in my eyes. We had callers calling in that were crying. The woman telling the story, when I first contacted her, I've been involved with her now about a week trying to put this program together. And she's coming to the convention to tell her story. And, you know, anytime we do a story here on the 6 screens that's shocking and unbelievable, and they think what I'm doing is sensationalizing things. But I talked with this woman and another woman that were both trafficked in the Watchtower. And before the program, or whenever I put a promo up about what's going to take place in a shocking way, I get people calling me, writing me, and I had a person write me yesterday when I put a promo up that they're coming and talking about trafficking in the Watchtower. And of course, well, be very careful, Rick. You know, these stories are made up, and I'm not really sure if these people are operatives or what they are. But boy, whenever we bring some story on that's going to rock people's cages, I seem to get these calls. But to make a long story short, last night, you know, when she came on, we kind of agreed that she's not going to tell everything. She's not going to go too deep into anything, just kind of superficially. But she decided at the very onset of the program that, oh, I'm going for it. I'm going full throttle. I'm going to tell you what happened. And what she did when she was a young girl, and her mother knew this. Her mother was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and the mother allowed her to be taken. I think she said she was 8 years old, and they would take her to the witness party or the entourage of witnesses, whoever was doing this trafficking, would take her to a hotel and they would drug her, a little 8-year-old girl. They would drug her, and then she'd have sex with these people all week long. That is so hard to believe. And really, people, they're crying. They couldn't believe it. The girl her name was Star, and she was crying as well. And then 3 other women called in and said the same thing. And this really got us all concerned that this is only the tip of the iceberg, that this goes very, very deep. And one young woman called in. She had a little girl and she had a little boy, still has them. And both of them were trafficked in the Watchtower, taken off, and the people had sex with her, with her kids. And one of the poor little kids today has trouble moving his bowels because of all of this. And the little girl is psychologically damaged. And the girl was so strong. And she listens into the 6 screens regularly. And she says, Rick, I'm speaking up. I'm going to tell my story. If Star could come on, I'm coming on. And then another woman came on and told a very similar story. So how deep does this go? How deep does this go, Anne-Marie?
Hey, Rick.
Yes, Larry.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna comment on the story or the experience about your son, about them not wanting him to meet the girl with your family. Now, my story is a little bit different. There was a woman, a sister in our congregation. She had an unbelieving unbelieving husband, and she had 2 daughters. One was younger than me, one was older than me, and they were cute girls. But they would invite me over, and even though I did have a crush on the younger one, but whether they knew it or not, I don't know. But that was one of the most enjoyable times, being with a family, getting to know young girls. So they leave it up. The witnesses leave it up to fantasy. You can't have, some of them don't want you to have healthy relationships with the opposite sex, even though there's nothing going on. But that's a very healthy thing. And I experienced that healthy thing, believe it or not, while we were in the Watchtower. And by the way, this sister was considered a weak person, but it was very enjoyable to meet with them as a family. And I wasn't dating the girl. I wasn't, I probably didn't even know I liked her, but it was just so enjoyable to be with a family and be acknowledged as a person.
Well, that
Oh, good for you.
yeah, Anne Marie. In fact, I like what Larry said. Healthy. That's a healthy thing. You know, just because the Watchtower things, just because a man and a woman or a young person, girl and boy get together, they're gonna have sex. That's not the truth. That's not the truth. But the Watchtower inserts that in their equation.
Well, I think it's because they are so twisted. Anything to do with sex, they are so insanely twisted. They do pornography. I think they masturbate to the confessions of a woman that comes to them and said, I committed fornication, or a rape victim or a child molestation victim. They always ask these horrible questions. And I call it theocratic pornography, because for what other reason would they want to know every detail of who touched who, where, and how long, and did you have an orgasm, and did he have an orgasm, and blah, blah, blah. And how could you spend 2 or 3 committee meetings just so you could ask these horrible questions? And like the gentleman said, when it comes to a healthy, normal relationship, normal feelings, they look at it in a twisted way, because they're twisted and they're sick and they're disgusting. And it's no wonder then that this poor girl Star, bless her heart, was brave enough to come on and tell her story of what was done to her. And over the years of research that I have done, I have run across so many stories.
I think Anne Marie dropped off on us again. It's a shame, darn it. I'm going to get Anne Marie a phone here very shortly and get it out to her, because it does break up a lot on her. But yeah, no, they're going to really make a big deal about a man and a woman getting together. I mean, a young couple even. You have to have dating in mind.
I've got a funny one I've got one that's a wholesome story, and it's funny because I was in 8th grade in a different school system for 1 year. I didn't even have curves yet. I didn't know what men and women did. But I was a pretty little girl, and this classmate helped me over a fence, and it was the only time I'd ever lived in a rural area, and I'm like, I'm from the city, how do I get across this little stream? So he helped me over a fence and over a stream, carefully holding my hand to do so. I walked home. He walked home. I guess he told his parents, who were witnesses, that he held a girl's hand. Because that week they show up at my house telling my dad that I was this wicked temptress because their son had held my hand. And I said, I was trying to get across the stream. He helped me across the fence and over the stream. And these people were so narrow-minded. My dad and I laughed about it for years. They said, your daughter's so wicked, we're moving back to Canada.
Oh, my God.
So that's how ridiculous it can be, from the sad criminal edge all the way to the foolish, ridiculous, let's not even have innocent children meet each other edge.
Yeah.
It's not a safe place. They don't have a spirit of a sound mind.
No, ma'am. It just amazes me how they pick on innocence and twist it, and yet they will allow a JW brother to beat and terrorize his wife and beat his children, and a brother to marry a single sister with children and then start molesting the children. They get away with such evil things. Oh, don't talk about it. Oh, Jehovah will take care of it. Oh, be a better wife. And I have heard, like I said, I don't know how much you guys heard because my phone cut off again, but they do horrible things. And we have heard so many stories from so many different people over the years. And for a victim of such horrific sexual abuse, especially in what's supposed to be God's organization, to be able to come forward and share their story. You know that there are so many more stories that people just can't share.
Well, because, and also the Watchtower has countries. They're in how many? 200 plus countries. We're only hearing the English language version of this. Imagine how downtrodden these women are in other places, and children and such. It's really very sad. And the authorities look the other way because they're hiding under religion.
Yep. Pedophile paradise.
Yeah. But
Rick,
at least people have a voice here, and people can understand that they're not the only people that might have seen something like this or know of something like this. That was a very powerful show last night, and I think the listeners know that, you know, what maybe they heard about is true.
Absolutely. Sometimes the more horrible it is, the more people that don't get it, that haven't been involved in it, can say, oh, that's not true, that's sensationalizing. Nobody has to sensationalize anything, because this stuff has been going on, in Barbara Anderson's words, forever.
Well, when I was with a family newspaper, it was the largest paper in my state. And the religion editor and I tried to get the newspaper to cover these things. They would not cover certain issues in a family newspaper, even if it was not in a religion. So we're in a time now with the Me Too movement where people are hearing about true crimes that need to be known about, that it just wasn't discussed in previous generations. So if there's any plus to it, that's a plus.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even when I was, going through that situation as a kid, it never entered my mind to tell my mother or to say anything to anybody. It literally didn't occur to me. I was never threatened, but it's like I just blocked it out. And for somebody to go through what we have heard, I can't even wrap my head around the incredible mental and emotional strength it takes to speak out and tell their story. It's amazing. So anybody who thinks it's okay to dismiss it, I think that their head is up their behind.
717, once you come on, 717, what do you have to say?
I'm enjoying what Pixie has to share about that date. I think it's based on that pervy culture right there.
Hello, Anne Marie.
Yes, hello.
Hi, I wanted to make a quick comment. Sometimes people wonder, well, is this true, or how can we know it's true? It sounds so bizarre. Well, a very well-known psychiatrist, what he does is he asks people, how old were you when this occurred? And if they name an age, specific age, quickly, and he says, then that's it happened. Because there's no way for you to know that quickly at what age something like that happened. But people who experience this, that's what they know this immediately.
Great point. I remember how old I was every time. So I never thought of that.
Yes, that's a very important point. So if someone knows exactly what age, what time things occurred, it's for real.
Wow. I'm so glad you brought that up. Somebody want to speak? Did I get cut off again?
No, you're still on, Anne Marie.
Did somebody want to speak? Okay, I thought I heard a gentleman talking.
Yeah, let me make an announcement. And I haven't made this announcement for a while, but folks, we got to really because of the influx of calls that come into the 6 screens. You know, the telephone, understand it's a microphone. If you want to speak up, you hit *6. That unmutes you. And just remember, make a note. When you're done talking, hit *6 again, and that will mute you. My job, I sit here, and it's so frustrating. I have to keep muting people all the time, and it takes really a lot of effort to do that. So if you want to speak up, you hit *6. And if you're not on, hold your hand over the phone and make sure there's no noise in the background. If you're cleaning dishes or watching TV, shut the TV off. No noise, because it comes on and it makes it very, very annoying. So if you could help me out with that, that would be wonderful. That is, if someone said to me, Rick, what's the biggest issue you have doing programs like you do and having a network here? That's the biggest problem right there, is the telephone line. And I want to keep that going, because a lot of people don't go on YouTube. They don't go on Facebook. But it could be that I will have to shut the phone line down if this continues, because, man, especially when I'm trying to do my own show. I'm trying to multitask at the same time, shut people down. So if you could help me with that, I really ask you from the bottom of my heart. It would help me tremendously. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I'm guilty of the same thing. I was cooking dinner yesterday and I had no idea that my mute button was off. And all of a sudden I heard muted. I went, oh no, my fault. So it can happen even when you think you're being careful. Like Thomas the other day, he did not know his mute button was off. And I kept hearing talking, and I started to think maybe it was Fran and Joe, and it was Thomas, and he apologized. So even if you think you're muted, I try to tell myself, keep checking, because you might not be muted. I have my *6 unmuted, but my mute button on my phone, I try to make sure it stays muted. And sometimes you can accidentally touch it or whatever, and you think you're muted and you're not.
Well, no, I've fallen victim myself. It's hard to know. But if we all concentrate on it, but it's a hard thing to remember. You're talking on the radio, then you forget to do that. But boy, it really would. I wish it was a system that would do it automatically. If someone's not talking, any sound at all coming up like junk sound, it would shut it off. But that is, even since the very concept of this whole idea 20 years ago, that's always been the problem. We started off on the telephone. And I have to tell you, we get a lot of people calling in to the 6 screens. It's amazing. But we're the only ones that really use a telephone line like this. Everybody else has people come on through StreamYard and what have you. But this is really a technological challenge to have the phone tied in with the computer. And there's a lot of things. I've got 3 computers actually going right now. I've had as many as 6 going at one time, so I can monitor all of this. But I was able to cut it all down. The StreamYard has made it very, very good. Our StreamYard is very good. The sound quality is really good in there. So we never want to discourage people from calling in. We want as many people calling in as possible, because it really does add a lot of color to the program. And last night we had, I had to cut some of the people off. We couldn't even get all the people on. People calling in from all over the world and voicing their concerns on that program.
Wow. I wonder if there could be a special, I'm sorry, I had my speaker on. I wonder if there could be a special show, sometime just for victims of sexual abuse while in the Watchtower that could come on and share their experiences. I don't know, it's just an idea. But they say you never know how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Well, that's what I was thinking last night, when all of a sudden we had 3 other women call in and say the same thing happened to them. We all couldn't believe it. Dan Clark was on last night. He said, Rick, I cannot believe it. He says, this is unbelievable. People were making all kinds of comments. People were saying they were crying on Facebook and YouTube. And it just really was a real tearjerker. And then the girl, Star, she was very, very brave. And she's got a spot at the convention. She's coming to the convention. In fact, I sent her 3 tickets the other day, and she's got 2 friends coming with her. And, we're not going to make it all about trafficking and sex abuse. There's a lot of other subjects in the Watchtower. But I really think that we got to tell some shocking stories like this. And for those listening in, I have people, if you're listening to the broadcast now, it will be streamed. I'm going to try to stream as much as we possibly can of the convention. So, don't worry if you can't be here. You'll be able to watch it anywhere in the world, really, if you can connect to the internet. So it will be streamed. It's going to be an event. It's going to be a historic event. So we really look forward to as many people coming up as possible. So if you're listening in, see if you can't make it up here. I mean, really, in life, we used to go to the conventions for the Jehovah's Witnesses. We didn't think too much about it. But I'll tell you, in life, there are certain events that really do make a mark in your mind. And this event coming up is going to do that. It's really going to, when it's all said and done, people are going to say, wow, I'm glad I went to that convention. It's going to make people really feel better, a lot better.
Oh, it's a great thing, a wonderful thing that you're doing, Rick.
Well, I'm having fun doing it. I really, really am. Almost on a daily basis, I get people, see what it is. If you look on the bottom of YouTube right now or Facebook, right along the bottom, it's scrolling about the convention. And people are seeing that. Now we get people listening in live, but really the most people, of course, come in when you put it up on YouTube, when it's uploaded. So they still see it. So people who upload it see it and they say, wow, I'd like to go there. And we have more women for some reason. More women are writing in wanting to go than men. I thought it would be just the other way around. But maybe a lot of men, haven't.
Well, mostly women have gone through a lot of suffering and damage to their self-esteem, that they're nothing, that if anything is happening to them, any abuse, it's their fault. They're the wrong, they're in the wrong and just beat down so bad. And a lot of times the women were smarter than their husbands. I'm not saying, of course, that's true in your case, Rick. You're a very smart man. But those women who were just treated like trash, remember Lori, I forgot who, Lori somebody who gave her speech at the 2014 Witnesses Now for Jesus, how her husband would lay around in a sparkle lounger, drinking beer, watching TV all day while she was out killing herself, working a very stressful job, hardworking. And every year she had to plant a huge garden to try to feed her family and do all the housework while he just laid around. And when she went to the elders for help, they said, well, he's the head of the house. He's the boss. Submit to your husband. And when she told how traveling witnesses would come by in their campers and just assume that they could stop there and wash their clothes, use her laundry detergent, her electricity that she paid for, and take showers and leave a mess all over the place. And the last straw, she said, for her is when she came home from work after working all year to grow her garden. It was just harvest time where she was trying to find time to harvest her garden. She came home one day after work, and these witnesses had come by in 2 campers to shower and to use her laundry facilities once again. But when she went out to her garden, it was stripped bare. That husband of hers, that lazy, no good for nothing husband of hers, somebody had asked if they could, have some from the garden. And he said, oh, sure, take all you want, so he would look good. And he let them take her laundry baskets, and they literally stripped her beautiful garden bare. Imagine the time it took to prepare the garden, the soil, to plant, to weed, to water, to fertilize. It took her all year. And he just gave it all away. And she said that's what she used to feed her family. She would can the vegetables. And, you know, he didn't pay for anything. But he was in good standing with the organization because he went out in service, and she was the complaining, non-submissive wife. Isn't that great? That's just one example.
Well, you have a good memory, Anne-Marie. I remember you just brought back memories. I believe that was Laurie McGregor. I'm not sure, but I think it was. Was it her? Yeah.
I remember her name. That's exactly her name.
Yeah. I forgot about that, but that was startling. But see, that's what happens. That's what really happens. The witnesses, they take advantage. No, not all. I'm not going to make a blanket statement here, but they'll take advantage of you when they have an opportunity to do it. They really, really will. I've seen it done. My mother and father, for example, they owned a motel up in New Hampshire, way up in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. And my mother was a loyal witness. My father never was. But I'll tell you, they had that motel, and who do you think would love to go up there? Was the witnesses. Well, we're gonna go up and be with Sister Dot. And they'd come up and they would expect that, you know, they would get some type of a discount. And what are you going to do? You have to help them, right? They're your brother and sister. So you'd land up some nights. I believe they even gave them free nights. But, you know, come on. It's got to be, you know, it used to make my mother mad. I remember my mother's not with me anymore, but she was a loyal witness and died a loyal witness. But I can remember her always saying, as much as she loved the Watchtower and was so loyal, my mother was always say, Rick, they're trying to know too much of my business. They're trying to know too much of my business. And the witnesses do. They're nosy. The witnesses are very nosy. They want to know everything that's going on in your life. And they get this feeling that they're like you, they're like family. I mean, the Watchtower gives them that, right? You're my brother and sister. I mean, even the terms. But many witnesses feel like, well, geez, I can take advantage of Brother Farron. I can take advantage of Sister Anne-Marie. She's my sister. She'll do it for me. I mean, how many times have you really tried to help witnesses out and said, gee, I'm going to help these guys, and did they really appreciate it? I'm not going to say all. That'd be unfair if I said all witnesses were that way. Then they're not. There's some that are really, really nice. But a lot of them do take advantage of you, Anne-Marie.
Well, it is extremely common. I was constantly used for babysitting so that others could go out in service. And I always said yes. And they always knew, oh, Anne-Marie will babysit. Never a question. They feel entitled. As you said, they expect it. And I remember you giving 2 examples of wedding receptions where people just showed up. Witnesses just showed up uninvited to eat the food that was paid for by the father-in-law. And that was really, really horribly unchristian behavior. To show up, to imagine your daughter's wedding, that you paid for all the food and the venue and everything, and a bunch of brothers and sisters hear about it and show up. Oh, free food, free lobster, and clean out everything. And the invited guests are left with nothing.
Well, I'll tell you, I believe my wife is listening. I'm not sure. But her wedding to her first husband was kind of like that. Susan, I don't know if you're listening or not, if you want to tell a story or not. But anyways, you there, Susan?
Hello, Rick.
Yeah, you want to tell a story? You're all set. Go ahead. Hit *6. That'll unmute you. Hold on one second. Let me unmute you. Here, hold on one second. I'm gonna unmute Susan. Here, hold on for some reason. Okay. Okay.
And poor Susan's
Susan.
father wasn't even a witness.
Yeah, Susan, you're on with us. Go ahead, Susan. We can hear you now.
Oh, okay. You want me to talk about my wedding reception?
They'd love to hear it. They'd love to hear it.
Yeah.
Well, what's so sad is the whole wedding was just not fun for me because my ex-husband's family was just unbelievably rude. But there was, it ended up, my dad had, I think it was a dinner for 300 people. And they did show up, but 500 people showed up. And they would not serve dinner at the reception until my dad slapped down $2,000. Now, this is 1978, so, you know, $2,000 was a lot of money back then. And unless my dad slapped down $2,000, they weren't going to serve dinner. So he did. And then he said to my mother, "Who are these people? I don't know anybody." And I didn't blame him. It was horrible. And they took advantage.
So, Susan, just so that we can,
Big party.
well, we're trying to make it very clear for the audience, and you're doing a good job, but you're saying that you invited 300 people to come to your wedding. This is a witness wedding. You were Jehovah's Witness. Your father wasn't. So you had 300 people, invites to come to the wedding. 500 showed up. So that's like 200 that came uninvited and were expecting a meal. And your father foot the bill.
Yes. And I was only a witness for a year. So I didn't know too many people. So it was all them.
Can you imagine the audacity of each one of those 200 freeloaders deciding that they had the right to crash your reception? And your father paid a lot of money for some good food. They must have been passing around the information. Hey, everybody, let's not go to a restaurant. There's free food over at this reception. Oh, no, it's okay. They're witnesses. We can take advantage of them and eat all we want. We don't have to pay for it.
Boy, the kitchen staff must have been going crazy, too.
It's just a horrible example, and it's just one because I've heard of these stories. This is not an isolated thing. There are so many poor brides that have had to deal with witnesses just showing up. This does not happen in other religions that I have ever heard. It's showing up with this entitlement attitude. And they're not sorry. It doesn't bother their conscience. And they had to know that dinner was not being, it was being held back because there were too many people. You think that they got a clue and left? No. They stayed around until Susan's father put down another $2,000, which you know he already paid through the nose for what was already there, which was meant for her new husband, relatives, and the invited guests, which were 300. Imagine how much that cost. And then 200 more just show up. Why? Because they felt like they
That
could.
must have been very embarrassing for Susan as the bride, and how fortunate that her father had the money to solve the issue. That's quite a story. You know, when I went to the library, I made sure to read an etiquette book. A lot of witnesses, I guess they never have.
Probably don't even know what etiquette means, or social mores, or simple manners.
There's another current of a kind of social communism with the witnesses. They think if it's yours, it's theirs too.
True. But I'm
And it
thinking
seems to apply to your property and your car too.
I'm just thinking of poor Susan, a young bride, is already nervous, 300 people there. She is a newly married young bride, and she has to deal with her husband's parents, who were, especially the mother-in-law, was a total bitch to Susan. And Susan, being the sweet, loving, gentle, patient person that she is, she's having to deal with everything. Can you imagine the emotional strain that she was dealing with at her own reception as a new bride with 300 guests, knowing her father paid so much money, and then 200 freeloaders to show up? Can you imagine the stress that poor girl was under?
Well, that must have been a beautiful event, and then these 200 people tried to ruin it.
And you just want to slap somebody? Hello?
I want to slap them into next week, but that's just me.
You go, girl.
Hello.
Hi.
I just listened to this conversation, and I'm it's Maverick here, by the way. I'm not surprised, the stories. I'm remembering some of myself, but I just thought of it like we were part of a huge dysfunctional family where you had some who got on, some who didn't get on, but it's like I remember so many times where you would do a work for someone, a brother or sister in the congregation, and you're thinking it's actually an arrangement where you're getting paid, and at the end of it, they walk away and look at you as if it was a favor. And I said, well, I thought this was an arrangement for work. We agreed you wanted me to do some work for you, and with an understanding that you're going to get paid at the end. And it's like it's a dysfunction. Like it's an expectation of taken for granted. I mean, the crashing parties and things. My goodness, it's not uncommon. I've got a few stories like that as well. But it just reminded me how everybody just takes advantage of each other. So it's not. I was just sort of half smiling, but half thinking, my goodness, that it's like the idea of just dysfunctional behavior, and it's accepted as normal. We just got used to being abused and disrespected all the time. It becomes like don't say nothing to that brother or sister. That's just the way they are. And anywhere else, we wouldn't accept it. So I was just listening to you both talking, and it just made me think of so many examples, but time's too short to go over them right now.
Oh, wow. Is this Winston from London? I'm sorry, I forgot your name. It's
Maverick.
Maverick. Oh, God. Yeah. I'm so bad. Hi, Maverick.
Is that Anne-Marie? Is that Anne-Marie just now?
Yeah. What's that?
No, I was going to say, just on a side note, if you have access to a computer, I call into the show with my computer, not a phone, and I find it much more easy. I don't know if you have access to a computer, but it's really, really, really easy with the app, just to sort of give you an option if you haven't thought about that before.
Nope, I don't do computers. I do phones.
Okay, and, no problem.
I'm glad you do what works for you. I do what works for me. But I appreciate I appreciate the thought. But Maverick, when you talk about entitlement, and I think of users and abusers, the nosers that are always up in your business and gossiping about you, and the ones that are always hanging their head being told they're not humble enough. You have two sides, it seems, in the organization. The nice, sweet ones that are kind and don't gossip or judge, or, they're not selfish or mean. They're the ones that get picked on and stepped on and wiped their feet on all the time.
Hey, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just want to say my experience in the Watchtower, I was born and raised in it, but I enjoy doing things, helping people, and they didn't pay me, and that's well and good, because, if we're really a family, we do things like that. But the problem is, anytime I needed help and asked for help, everybody's too busy.
Yep.
It kind of reminds me of that story, the chicken that was going to make some kind of bread or something, and
the little red hen. The little red hen.
And asked if anybody would help her do this, help her do that. And nobody wanted to help her, but when it came time to eating, everybody wanted to eat it. So that's just the way the witnesses are. They're willing to put out their hand to receive, but when you ask for help, no, I'm busy, I can't do that. They don't put themselves out. They just want to receive.
They're takers. I remember a brother in 1970 at a call I was visiting. The brother got up for the public talk on a Sunday, and he read the story of the little red hen. And the little red hen had found some grain, and she said, "Who will help me pick the grain?" Not I, said the dog. Not I, said the cat. Not I, said the cow. Not I, said the horse. Not I, said the pig. And so she said, "Fine, I'll pick it myself." And she went through every step that she needed help, like taking it to the mill. Who's going to help me mill it? Who's going to help me make the dough? Not I, said the dog. Not I, said the cat. Not I, said the horse. Not I, said the cow. And he read that whole story. And I remember people in the audience getting an attitude, like he was treating us like children. I thought this guy was brilliant. And he was talking about that very thing. we're not willing to do the work or to help one another, but we all are in line to receive the benefits. And I never forgot that talk, and I thought that man was brilliant. And I couldn't believe after that meeting, so many people were just talking about that brother treated us like children. Who does he think he is? And I'm thinking the man is freaking brilliant. But it makes a point, like what Susan went through and what you, Larry, the point you made, that you did everything you could when you had an opportunity to help, you helped. But when you needed help, oh, gee, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. Isn't that the way we have experienced it?
Well, that's it, Anne Marie. I mean, Larry will agree with you, I'm sure. Anne Marie, I got another story to tell. I told it before. You like the story. It's another wedding I went to, and it was a disaster. It was a disaster. And again, people were coming that weren't even invited. There was a brother in the hall, and he had a good business, and he did good in life. He wasn't a multimillionaire or anything, but his son was getting married, and it was something that he really liked. He had 3 children, and this was the first time that one of his children would be old enough to get married. So the young brother, his name was Kenny, and he married this Christina, who was in the hall, and beautiful, a handsome guy, a pretty girl, and it was going to be a big wedding and well planned. And, they kept telling us, I went to their book study, and they kept saying, now, Rick, you and your wife, you're going to come to the wedding. Yeah, we're coming. Well, you're invited. We want you there with us, Rick. We want you there. I said, I'll be there. He says, now, you don't want to miss it, Rick. We're going to have lobster. We're going to have steak. This is going to be the best wedding you ever went to. We're going to have plenty of food. Don't worry about that. We're all going to have a good time. And we'll be, I believe he said plenty of food. At least he said there's food there. We have enough for everybody. So some comment like that. So anyways, the night of the wedding came. So my former wife and I, we went to the wedding, and man, I couldn't believe the line of people. It was at that big hotel down in Tampa, Florida. So we're standing in line, and I didn't think much about it. We are starving because I said, they're going to have a lot of food here. I went with another couple. I said, so, I didn't eat anything all day. None of the people I were with ate because there was going to be a big meal. So, I wanted to save room for it. So anyways, I'm saying, Jesus, an awful lot of people here. And I'm wondering, gee, I hope we waited at least an hour just to get up and get in the door. And the people were already eating. They were already eating. There had to be, close to 400 people there. And so anyways, we're all starving. So we got right in the line to eat. And when we got up to get the food, it was like a buffet. When we got up to get the food, there was nothing left. I mean, nothing. You couldn't even find an olive or a pickle on the table. So we are starving. We're starving. The people I were with, they said, oh, Rick, we're so hungry. I says, listen, I'm not going to stay here like this. We got in the car and all went out to a restaurant. But it was because the people, the witnesses who weren't even invited, came to the wedding and ate all the food for the people that were invited. Well, it's 2 experiences you heard here tonight. So today, I should say. But yet, nonetheless, it does happen. I'm sure it happens in the world too. But Maverick brought up a good thought just a few minutes ago. He said it's like a family, right? We're expected to kind of, and even Larry brought it up as well. You kind of, you feel, well, they're my brother and sister, but they do take advantage of you. That's for sure, Anne Marie.
Yeah, it is so true. And when you are a family, that should not be an excuse to take advantage of a family member at all. In fact, taking advantage of anyone, but you would think, being family, that you would be loving, that you would be like, what can I do to help? You would want to contribute, not just take. And that's not counting the ones that just showed up once again, like they did at Susan's wedding. And maybe Susan's father, not being a Jehovah's Witness, maybe had more money or means to put down $2,000 extra dollars. But the poor brother, brothers tend to be a lot less, having less money. it's not like he could do anything about it. So you suffered from the selfishness of assholes that showed up to just take without contributing. Takers, users, and abusers. And the ones that pay the price, like you and Susan and those who were with you. You guys were invited with love and kindness and brothership, and you had to wait an hour in line while freeloaders were taking all the food. This is sad because I don't really believe it happens. If it does, very often in other religions, but this is a well-known story. I have heard of this so many times. If people in the Watchtower hear that there's going to be a big reception with lots of food, they just show up.
Well, Anne Marie, I'll tell you another thing too. Back here in Massachusetts, back in the 1970s, I had a house that had a really nice fireplace in it. It actually had a brick oven. And I used to love to cook in the fireplace. I'd make steak and baked potatoes and sweet potatoes and ribs. And I'd invite a lot of people over. I mean, really, a lot of people come over. Come on over. Let's have some ribs. Let's have some steak. I'd pay for it all. I would. And I was happy to do it. And I really found it satisfying to have, and I invited everybody. Even the people that weren't invited, come on over and have some steak with us. Have a nice hot sausage. And I had plenty of food for everybody, and drink too, and so anyways, it was only a matter of time. And so then this couple that I would invite over a lot, they said, well, Rick, I want you and your wife to come over this Saturday night. I said, oh, that sounds good. Well, we're gonna have lobster, Brother Farron. Well, we're gonna have lobster, and boy, we'd really love to have you and your wife come. Oh, that's nice. The only thing is, it's $22 a piece to go. I believe it was $22 a piece to go. I'm saying, wow. So I mean, I paid the price, but would you, Anne-Marie, would you invite people over to your house and then put a price tag on it for them coming? Would you do that?
I don't think so. I can understand why, but I think it would be more loving to say, I really can't afford to pay for everything, but I'd love to have my brothers and sisters over. Can we make it like a potluck? Of course, they called it covered dish. Maybe if you could bring something, and that would be like what I would say a happy medium, but I can understand why they would say, it would be $22 because when you're putting together something, it costs money. And if you're financially challenged, it's going to cost money. There was a sister in our church who wanted to do a really nice big party for her husband, our pastor, who was turning 40. And all she asked is that everybody who was coming would contribute $10 because it's expensive. And nobody had a problem with it. And I realized I couldn't go because of my health. But I went up to her after church and I gave her $10. And she said, why are you giving this to me, Anne Marie, if you can't go? And I said, because it still costs money. And she appreciated that. So I can understand. But if there's another way, like, would you mind maybe agreeing to bring potato salad or knives and forks or whatever? I'm sorry. Go ahead, my brother.
No, in fact, I just was thinking that, from what I can remember, it was kind of just something that they just took for granted. And like I say, it was a lobster, so that's expensive, and I can understand that. But I'm thinking sometimes you got to bend the rules. Maybe rather than have a bunch of people over, say, look at Rick, come on over, we're gonna have some lobster tonight. Boy, wouldn't that be nice? And I've done that before, and there's plenty of people listening to this program. So I'm not really saying that doesn't happen in the real world either. But I'm saying it's sometimes just the way they go about it. The word is reciprocate. That's the word I'm trying to bring up here today is, if you invite someone over and give them a nice meal and take care of them, and hey, how'd you like that? Boy, that was nice, Rick. And then the next time you're going to be invited to their house, they're going to put a price tag on it. It just seemed a little, but I get what you're saying too, Anne Marie. It's not all that bad, but I think it would be better just to, well, come over, Rick. Maybe not get the lobster, get something that wouldn't be as expensive. But just my thoughts on it. I'm sure people can put a lot of legs on that story. Yep.
What you say makes total sense, Rick. But maybe I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe the person who was asking for $22 to help provide the food, to pay for the food, maybe you had put out such a nice spread, and they no way could afford to even do half as well as you did, but they wanted to. Like somehow they maybe felt that they would be insulting you to invite you over after everything you did and the great food that you provided, that they would feel like somehow disrespecting what you had done by inviting you for cheap food like potato salad and beans, because that's all they maybe could afford. But they thought, well, I want to have a big gathering like Rick had, but I can't afford it. So I want to see how much it would cost to provide good food like Rick did. Oh, wow, it's going to cost this much money. Well, maybe if everybody would be willing to contribute, but like you said, a lot of it has to do with the attitude and the way it's done, because it can rub you the wrong way when you provide it out of your heart, everything. And what's funny about people who come to your gathering, they almost always expect you to send them home with food. So that's even more expensive because food runs out, but then everybody wants you to offer like, oh, would you like some of this and some of that? Oh, yeah, thanks.
Well, Anne-Marie,
that happen?
Yeah. No, in fact, no, I get it all. In fact, I understand it all too. And, this happens in the world too. And it reminds me of something that just happened in the world. And it's not in the witness world, but in my place where I have a little company in Lowell, and we have 7 people at work. And so at Christmas time this year, I figured it'd be good to, hey, let's have a Christmas party. So Susan and I said, okay, we'll put together a party, and we'll have, in the afternoon, a few days before Christmas, we'll shut down, and we'll all have a little party and play some games and give some prizes and gifts away. So I figured, okay, so what we'll do is we get some Chinese food. So I got a whole lot, $400 worth of Chinese food, and, crab rangoon, egg rolls, teriyaki sticks, egg foo young, everything you can think of. And so I brought it down to the workplace. And, you were talking a little earlier about givers and takers. There's always going to be that, Anne-Marie, in life. So anyways, what happened is ragoon, crab ragoon. It's a big thing up here. People love it. They eat tons of it. And it's one of the favorite things that people like. Maybe in your neck of the woods too, I'm not sure. But anyways, so I brought like 4, I believe it was 4 containers of crab rangoon. So 2 of the people, as soon as I brought all the boxes in, they took off with the crab rangoon, so the others couldn't have it. Yeah, they did. They took off with the crab rangoon. And where's the crab rangoon? They took it, so they could have it later. Now, but see, they're not witnesses. So in the whole world, Anne-Marie, there's givers and there's takers, right? And it frustrates you to see that, but not everybody is really givers. And even the Watchtower, there was givers too. And I don't want to paint a picture that everyone was a taker. But even in the real world, it's just the way the world is, Anne-Marie,
Well, that's true. I always like to point out when people say, well, it happens in other religions too, or it happens. To me, that kind of dismisses how wrong it is in the witness organization, because the world and other religions don't loudly proclaim that they alone represent the only true God. They alone are true Christians. So to me, it's double, triple disgusting when supposed Jehovah's Witnesses, those who proclaim to be a witness of the true God, should be so foul and so disgusting in their behavior. And when somebody says, oh, well, other religions too. No, they should be way better than, and they should not be as bad as they really are. And many times they are worse, Rick. I'm sorry, I just have to say that.
Well, I like what you
So,
said.
Anne Marie,
Go ahead, Susan.
go ahead. Oh, Rick, you know your story about this Christmas party that we had? The couple that took the crab rangoon, he was raised as a witness.
My point.
He was, and she had been to the Kingdom Hall many times. Is that true? Right?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
So you can't say that he wasn't a witness because he was, really.
Yeah, it's in fact, what Anne Marie said there makes sense to me. You know, you hear witnesses say, "Well, it happens in other religions too." But here's my thought. I remember even my son Jack, going back to him again, when he first found out about the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I said, Jehovah's Witnesses hiding pedophiles, I should say. When he first found out about that, he said, "Well, what are the witnesses saying, Dad?" I said, "Well, they're saying that, it's no big deal because there's pedophiles in every religion." He says, "Yes, but the Jehovah's Witnesses claim they have the true religion that shouldn't happen in a true religion." Hey, Anne Marie, I guess we're going to wrap it up here. We got to go to the court. I just looked at the time. Why don't you kind of give your concluding comments, Anne Marie?
Oh, thank you, Rick. This was it always is a great show. I want to thank, of course, Rick and Susan for coming on and making this such a great show. I want to thank Steve, who came in from New Zealand and did the best he could to share his experience in the Watchtower. I want to thank Grace, our dear sister, who called in from Sweden. I want to thank Maverick, who called in from London, and Larry John Wayne. And if I missed anybody, please forgive me, because all the callers make the show, and we love and appreciate you, and thank you for calling in. We need to go now to Rick and the court, the whatever court it's called. I don't like the word court. Anyway, thanks everyone. It was a great show. Jehovah's Witnesses share their Watchtower story. Happy Sixth Green Sunday. Today's May 18, 2025. We go back to Rick. Rick?
Well, thank you, Anne Marie. So anyways, we want to thank, as Anne Marie said, everyone for coming into the Sixth Screens today on Sunday. We'll be back with ex-Jehovah's Witnesses share their story, I should say, of being in the Watchtower. So we'll see you in 2 weeks, and we're going to the Christian court. Now, don't head for the mountains. When you hear the word Christian, a lot of the ex-witnesses, wow, they don't want to hear it. Why don't you stay with us? And you're going to learn something today. We're going to be answering some peculiar questions that Christians ask. Stay with us. I think you'll really enjoy the program. Thanks once again. We'll end it here. Let me do that right now. And we'll be coming on the court in about 2 minutes. So we're going to end it right here.